Hello, Andraz. Welcome to the Builder Mind podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Super exciting to have you, man. We know each other for a while, and it's super fun to do this with you. So maybe you can tell us about how did you start to jump to the world of entrepreneurship, and when or how did you start it?
So I've always been an aspiring entrepreneur, even back when I was in high school. So I've always been doing little things to try to launch my business. And one of the first things was completely non-tech. It was actually about trying to preserve freshness of fruit. It was an idea I had in high school. And so a group of, high school mates, we got together at Best Time Club at my high school to actually launch it. And we built the product. There's like little pillows you would put beside your bananas and apples, and it would extend the shelf life. And that was one of the first things I did. I did a bunch of other things as well, doing things like I had like a mini tech marketing agency, but I always wanted to, build a product I would own myself. I really wanted to build something that, wasn't for somebody else, wasn't somebody else's idea. And that's how I got to start Katalist. I was looking for that idea of something that I would build that would be using my strengths, and then would then also get the benefit if that product succeeds, that I also own it. And so I was always looking for an idea, and Katalist was that idea for me.
I mean, just to go back a bit, what were the main factors or why you didn't continue with other ideas with like your high school idea or this agency? Were there some factors that you didn't see, like that you saw that, okay, this might not work, or what were the factors? Yeah.
Well, when I was in high school, I was still very naive. I didn't have any entrepreneur experience. I just, I thought I would want to use that and others would want to use the same thing. But when it actually got to selling it, we didn't get a lot of success. We really tried hard making those deals, and there was some interest. Like, not gonna lie, I was pretty surprised. Like, we got onto like national TV and newspapers, and there was like lots of publicity, but that didn't convert into a lot of sales. But it did convert in a lot of interest. But I was like super inexperienced salesperson, and I just made so many mistakes. I didn't end up closing any of those deals. So we ended up going online, just setting up an e-com store. And then the hardest part about e-com store, you got to drive traffic to it, because if you just set something up, everybody knows about you, even if the product's great. And we're also so inexperienced in that. We tried with things like Facebook ads, but it just didn't take off. We made a couple of sales, but never really enough to, build a sustainable business. So we just, kind of slowly faded away. I think we gave it like a couple of shots. And then once was like, this is the last shot, and that didn't work out. We just kind of disappeared. And then the agency business, it was not going that bad, but it was so hard. There's like two really hard things for me running that agency. One was getting clients, right? The market's super competitive. And even though I was in Slovenia and I was hiring Slovenians, agencies always, how much you charge and how much you have to pay, hourly. Right? So in Slovenia, it's kind of pretty competitive with US and Western Europe. But there are so many agencies in Eastern Europe that can charge even less. So it's so hard competing with them. And then hiring people is also really hard, because as soon as people get experienced, they're not going to accept your salary, and you can't hire them because you're not going to make any money.
But they want to have their own agency.
Yeah, right. Or they're going to go work for like a product company, right? So it's so hard to, get clients and get people. And it's this kind of like treadmill you're running on that I just thought, like, I don't see myself doing long term. I feel like I'm going to burn out trying to make this business work. So I thought, like, I would rather build a product.
Yeah. But also, you don't have any marketing background. You studied computer science. So how did you end up in the agency?
So it was a software development agency. It was, we're building software. So it was my background.
And then what was the moment that you came up with this Katalist idea, and why?
Yeah. So while I was doing all these experiments, I also had full-time jobs as a product manager. So I was working lots of different interesting projects. And the last couple of years, almost 3 years of my, career before I started Katalist, was working on creative automation. So I was working with this great company that built an automation product. Basically, what it did was it would help create advertisers lots of ads with, translations and different product images. If like a huge company, you have to create like thousands and thousands and thousands of ad variants for all your markets and so on. So I was working at that company as a product manager. They're leading one part of this new product that we're building. Generative AI just became, a thing overnight, right? We had the ChatGPT launch, and we had like right after that, it was like Midjourney beta, DALL-E after that. And, these things were coming out. Like, to me, it's obvious, like, this is such a big inflection point, like a technological change, that something's going to happen. And I read this framework somewhere. It's like 4 or 5 different aspects, that create opportunities for new entrepreneurial ideas, right? One is, it's technological change. The other one is social change, it's political change. And if something changes, then it opens up this new space where something new can be created, right? And when I saw that happen, right, this image generation, I was like, this is the tech change that's going to disrupt what we're doing. And I knew I had to build something in this space. I didn't know exactly what it's going to be at that point, but I knew I had to be here because I knew it's going to be a step change.
Can you take us from that moment that you really saw the opportunity, and then you kind of made the team, came up with the initial MVP or idea? So how did you take all these steps to where you are at least some months ago or even now?
Yeah. It's a great question. I love talking about this because I've worked with so many companies where, we would start developing the product right away and then we'd figure out the market fit. And I would always be like, I'm going to do it right. So I didn't start building the product. I just started brainstorming ideas that I thought would gonna resonate. I started thinking about like, who's the audience and what's the problem? And then when I felt I had a great idea, and that first idea was actually creating concepts for ads. So if you're like a creative agency or marketing department, a bigger company, you don't just execute, right? You probably create some mock-ups, you get that mock-ups approved, and once you have it approved, you spend money on making them happen, either by going to the set, taking pictures, and so on, right? So we thought we could really speed this process up, and I created the whole deck, like a sales deck about this product that didn't exist. I just kind of mocked it up in Figma and so on, and I just went around trying to sell it. I was pretty upfront. I didn't really, try to kind of like sell something that didn't exist. I was kind of like pre-selling it. I was like, if you sign up now, you're gonna get free access for a year, but you're gonna have to spend at least an hour a week with my team, and you're gonna have to use it. Like, you can't just sign up and it's gonna be free. You're gonna have to at least invest a little money. So I was going around pitching this to agencies in Ljubljana, and I got a couple to sign up. And I thought like, well, this sounds like, now I need to build it. So we started building the product. It was first was just like my co-founder and I, 2-person team. Because I do have that computer science background, I was also coding a lot back then. I didn't, there was not that much work to do because we're starting out. We got a couple of customers, and we just wanted to get this first couple, I don't know, 2 or 3, to just get to a point where they are extremely satisfied with the product, where they use it every day, so then we can use them as case studies and just scale up the sales process, basically. But then we learned about our assumptions being wrong, and we had to, start making tweaks and pivoting, and, hundreds and thousands of tweaks and micro pivots and experiments. And we got to Katalist, which is now an AI video production tool. That's, pretty different thing in some regards.
Just click a bit more on this is so like, why you didn't ask for money for what you were offering? Kind of, why did you go for like free version? Because somehow, like everyone might say yes for a free version, but then when you ask them for money, then they might, look at it more seriously and then say, oh, sorry, this is not what we want. So why for free? And also, wouldn't you like kind of like weren't you afraid of, not delivering and then burning the bridge between you and these potential customers that you really kind of, promised but not delivered what you promised?
Yeah, this is a great question. One of the things that I learned that I said to myself last year was I should have started charging earlier. I don't know if it was a mistake to try to charge the first client, because like getting the first client to like even sign something, even if it's free, it's so daunting. It's so hard, such a big milestone. It's just, I knew that like if you get something for free, it's much easier to sell. But that's why I put in, like I said, I want that hourly commitment and, all these requirements from these guys. So it's not like just free, right? They got to give at least something. But I didn't have, I was desperate to get a deal done at that point because, I left my job. This is like my main thing. I need to get progress. And I'm just doing this for the first time too, right? So I think if I would have done it again, I would have asked for money up front, but I think I might not have gotten that contract. So maybe it would have been, fail faster than try again. But it was like, a very early stage for me where I didn't have that big of a network either. So I didn't have that many people to go to if I failed, right? So I don't know, maybe not such a bad call, but definitely later on when we actually launched the paid version, we learned about so many more things that people considered when they're actually, being parted with money, that I was like, oh my God, there's all these things we didn't know about. we were building without that knowledge, right?
Can you please name some of those things that you learned?
Like over a year ago since we launched. I don't think I still remember, but like it was product features. It was basically people, it's product features people didn't really bring up when it was like kind of free. And then once I said like, well, this is how much it's going to cost, people start saying, oh yeah, but this is a deal breaker. This is like that's an objection that, it's just a must have. Yeah. And we had to build it, but it wasn't the worst. We just built that stuff. And then, we were able to make those deals anyway.
Yeah. But also it takes a huge confidence to sell, product before building it. So initially there is lack of confidence in really going for paid offers. So you kind of feel a bit afraid of, promising something big, but then not like delivering. So you say,
yeah,
let's do it for free. And then you don't have this hard commitment for them because anyways, it was free deal.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's true.
There's this initial confidence needed if you really want to go for paid partnership. But maybe it's time to talk about Katalist more. So if you can pitch us like what it is and who this is for, like the ideal customer, and what are the main value propositions that you're kind of pushing for those.
Oh yeah, for sure. Katalist is all about video because I think video is the most, it's the most engaging, the most information dense medium, and everybody's, it's in love with video and entertainment. Even us right now on this podcast, it's video, right? For a reason. But at the same time, video is so hard to produce. Even like 3-4 years ago when I was at my previous company, it was a hard problem to solve, and it still is. But now that we have Gen AI, we're opening up all these possibilities for AI video production. I think everybody in video space is, thinking along these lines. But what we're specifically focusing on is that there are so many, great talented people out there in the world that, have these great ideas, whether for a marketing campaign or for entertainment content they want to put out online. And specifically, they want to put out online because I think we've democratized this distribution channels like YouTube and so on, 10, 15 years ago. And now we're democratizing the production part. So, our best customers are, small marketing teams. There's the YouTube channels. There are small production companies, and I'm seeing this shift where we're going from big studios, like big, top tier Hollywood studios and, similar production companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars. And today, these experiences, these videos being achievable with $50,000 budgets because of generative AI. And so we're powering this, very specifically, we're powering this generation of, video production, filmmakers and content creators. And so right now, one of the, couple of core segments where we're going after, one is, it's just content creators. There's, TV today is on YouTube. We got like over 2 billion people on YouTube hungry for content. And we got small time production companies with, 1 to 10 people behind them putting out daily content. A lot of them, they're like small teams with like a couple of people, they're not even shooting video. They're just, maybe using something like, 11 Labs to generate voice and then put some pictures behind it. And it makes for engaging story people watch, and it makes thousands of dollars in ad revenue. And, I think there's this segment so hungry for making their videos more actual videos, right? And there's all these businesses like us, one of our main marketing channels is building our own YouTube channel, because people that come across us on YouTube, they watch our tutorials, our reviews, our tips and tricks, and they get so excited about the product, they come out and try it. And I think there's so many other businesses and startups, that think in the same way. And that's why we're building this platform for this, right? It's a platform that is basically, I call it an orchestration platform for video automation. But what it really means, it's, you create your script, you turn your script into a storyboard, and then you turn it into a video. And you do it all with Gen AI. And if you want to use anything else, we try to build it open in the way that you can also bring in all of your other tools. We have integrations with Premiere Pro. We support, script writing software. We support video upload from other sources, so that if you want to create some live action, you can mix it together. And I think that's really the really powerful part. I think where we're bringing all these tools together, so that, you're always being able to use the latest and greatest. And, not just that, leverage existing video production workflows, because, at the end of the day, there are still so many video editors using Premiere. So that's my very long pitch.
Wow. Thank you so much. Actually, I agree that this video content is really becoming, it was popular for a while and it is still going on. And there are lots of creators popping up, even like this podcast, could be something like that. And like no one wants to really invest a lot of time, but to create a good content and video really like need to spend time. So I think these AI tools can really be making the process very efficient and then somehow make the content creation easy.
Mm.
But also hopefully, it will give some time for the content creators to be more creative, because the production side is being, processed with the AI, but then you have to think how to make, very interesting content, because it's an
Yeah,
ocean where competition is very high, and it's just like becoming more competitive, with Reels now, with TikTok and other platforms. So
absolutely.
maybe it's the best time to show the product and then make us a video.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, look, once you're in the product, you have your library of projects you've done. We've done lots of interesting stuff. You either start by uploading a script, because lots of our users are professionals. It's really we are targeting, people that are making money by creating these videos. So oftentimes you have a script. You can upload your script, but we're seeing so many times people are now just generating their own scripts with GPT. So we have a similar function in here. So I'll just generate a basic script. This is going to be completely like a fictional story this time. The prompt is a medieval knight fights a dragon, right? So we generate a simple script. And oftentimes, it's pretty crazy. Like, writers will use GPT too, right? Usually not to just generate the whole script, usually more for, creating ideas. Catalyst is great for this too, right? You can really easily go from just an idea to a final video and have to use it, because generating it's so cheap. You can just be like, well, I don't really like it. So we're going to do that. We generate a quick script. It's about the dragon. There's a dragon. The knight fights it. The village saved. Okay, that's the story. So what Catalyst does, breaks the script down, because the script is made up of all these parts, like characters and locations. And Catalyst builds this kind of a modular representation of the script. So then we can go in and start saying, how do we want to represent certain parts? First one is style. So let's do cinematic. I think cinematic is the most impressive because it's the most realistic. And then we got our first character here. We got just a single character in this story. So Catalyst already figured it could look like this. Now we have lots of options to customize, but we're just gonna go with the default. So I'll create a project, and now what Katalist does, it takes our selection for the character, it takes all the different locations and puts them together into images. And we believe that, small things like, tweaking parameters and creating rating prompts are things that are not of the future, that are there, like they're friction to creativity. And so we try to do all this stuff automatically. So we automatically generate prompts, we automatically pick model parameters, and then we just go and we just generate the first draft. And the point of that is that when you come in, it took us about a minute with me, doing all this explanation. And we're going to have a first draft of our story already on our screen. And it's so much better than starting with a blank canvas. Like, even if you're using Gen AI like Midjourney, imagine now I probably spent like 15, 20 minutes of generating these images as a first draft. Instead, I already got something that I think looks pretty good. I would probably go and make some changes. Maybe this one, I didn't love this one that much. So we've built a whole editor around this. Really, the idea here is that we don't really generate a video straight away, because image editing tools are so powerful that we can lock in all of the details. First of all, there's continuity, continuity in style and scene and characters. But second of that is all these things that we want to change, like shot, when I'm thinking about cinematography, do I want this to be a close-up? Do I want this to be a shot from above, shot from below? I think this shot from below looks pretty good. I might want to change things around and generate a couple more options, right? So we give you these tools that let you control the shot in, as much detail as possible, because we know that a lot of our creators, they have a pretty defined vision of what they want to see in their mind, and they want to achieve that on the screen. So we got a couple more options. I think this one's really, really crazy. There's lots more things we can do. We got, tools for posing characters and so on, but we could spend an hour putting this together if we're going to go into all details. So I'll just save this. And what I'll do next is I'm just going to say this storyboard looks good. I'm going to turn this into a video. And so we do this with a single click. And you'll just say, well, I want to turn this into a video. Here we tell you can also upload it if you want to, do something different. But I'm going to generate it. And we let you do this with a number of different models. We're going to use Runway Gen 3 for this one right now. By the way, VO2 coming soon. And we're going to get a first draft of the video. And because our images looked pretty good from the get-go, there's probably going to be very little, kind of artifacting and issues with the videos because they have like a really great image prompt associated with them. So as soon as we start, this coming together, we'll start seeing the videos.
And for now, so is there any limit on the length of the video? So is it for short ones, or it can be, for hours, or how? Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't really have people making feature films. Still, we're mostly focusing on kind of short, medium length content. So that would be, up to like 15, 20 minutes. So we're not really, it's not really a feature film type of length. I think might be in the future, but right now it's mostly, shorts, YouTube videos, medium length videos, like up to, 15, 20 minutes. So that's the kind of length people usually create in the Catalist.
Okay. And then you use 11 Labs for the voice, and then some other models for.
Yeah, that's right. So, we do it like with the voiceover. So, you can type this in or, upload your own. And then also we do things like, lip syncing. So, when you have the kind of spoken dialogue, we have this dialogue feature here, we can make our character, make him speak, all these kinds of things. So that you have all these capabilities for, telling the story. And then something we're coming out next week, I think is going to be a game changer. Actually, we're replacing this view with a timeline, finally. So that you're going to be able to edit the video. Right now, you just export the project file and just do it in Premiere. But, if not that, at least I can show you how it looks all together. This is kind of like the quick preview of the video we just put together. And, if we spend a little more time adding voiceover and lip sync, it's, you can turn it into a full movie. There's definitely some things that probably, if this was a real thing, I probably would have gone and changed and edited, like this, like fire coming out. And sometimes, Runway just walks backwards. But, this is just the current state of Gen AI. And we, what we worry about is how do we make tools where you can easily go and say, all right, this video, this looks pretty good, but maybe this one where this guy's walking backwards, Runway didn't get it right. So I'm just going to jump in here and really quickly change it, and, you fix it like that, right? So I'd go in here and make the changes with Runway, and then just generate a new one. Unfortunately, models are getting better and we're getting access to better models. So, just with what Gen 3 is able to achieve, I think, we're getting VO2 soon. I think this is going to be a crazy upgrade.
And like, what is the secret sauce behind Katalist? What's, making you guys very unique? Because I see this AI generated video space is very crowded, with OpenAI, Sora, and some like Runway and all these other ones, Midjourney. So there are a lot of this, video content or AI solutions. So what is the secret sauce for you guys that, you feel that you're winning or you're still in the market?
For sure. It's, I've always, when I've been, building products, even before Catalist, my thing's always been about building a really great product. And I think there's so many great, tech companies out there like Runway, they're pushing the boundaries for us. And I see companies like Runway, like when Sony puts out the digital camera, which I think, it's a fair analogy to Gen AI filmmaking. It's like pre-generation of digital cameras. It's AI models. The company that builds the imaging chip that's within the Sony digital camera, it's like Runway to us. So we're building the interface, we're building the body of the camera, and they are building the chip, right? And we're not really trying to build a chip. I don't see us, we're not even in a position to do it, right? You probably need like at least $1 billion to really give it a go in funding. And at the same time, because all this is open source, it's really great for startups because when open source models are coming out, especially on the image side like Flux and LLMs, now we got DeepSeek, fantastic. This is just spurring innovation in our space because we get the, ability to build a great product. And there's probably going to be a lot of people trying to build a great product with these technologies. They're going to be our competition. I think that's totally fine because our differentiation here is just building a really great product experience for the use cases that we know we can, deliver a great user experience. And we know from we launched this over a year ago. And since then, there's been, we started with storyboarding. There have been like 20 storyboarding products launched. But when I talk to every customer that cancels our subscription, because we do have people that cancel our subscription still, that's willing to talk to me, I ask them, why are you canceling? Is this like going to a competitor? I've only once or twice had somebody say, yeah, I went to a competitor. I asked them, did you not like the quality? They're like, no, you guys have the best product experience of all the products I tested. And because everybody has a free trial, I know these people try 5-10 products. So this is how we're differentiating. And it's, of course it's tough. You always got to be innovating. You always have to, be putting out better features, better capabilities. It's, it's not, I guess it's really hard to just build a monopoly and say, oh, we have a moat and we can go vacation for a couple of years because we got the data or something. But I think what we're learning right now, even with companies like OpenAI, there isn't much of a moat, right? Even they get disrupted by somebody pulling data from their model and creating their own at a tenth of the cost. So for us, it's all about being super intentional about the problem we're solving and then just really solving it really, really well. And I think that's it. And I think I could say like, yeah, we have the silver bullet. And you know what? I think that everybody that's got that silver bullet, I don't believe them. I don't think they're being honest. And I'm just going to be honest and say, I think that's how it is. And I think that's the reality. The market's so big, competition's not even a problem. It's honestly, we've had great growth and the churn's never been because of the competition. The churn's always been, the product needs to be better.
Yeah, that's a consistent, feedback all the time. So like something about AI generated pictures and videos from my experience is that it's super excited in the beginning, it's something wow, because it's the first time. But then if you look at the same picture or this AI generated picture for a while or the video, it's getting a bit boring. And you see kind of now I see a lot, people are just making this AI generated videos, pictures. And for me, I don't see that the attachment to it, and I feel that they're doing it just because they're lazy and they just, ask someone or just like ask Katalist or Sora or like Midjourney to build something or make their content. So my question is that, what do you think about this initial excitement? And then, this excitement goes down because people, they see that it's AI generated and then they don't really see a meaning into it. Even if it has really deep meaning, because it's still some people are like working on that. So what do you think about this excitement level going down, and also how you as a company try to make this engagement lasting, so that customers are not churning because of customers, users, or the audience feedback?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a really great question, and it really goes back to thinking about why do people watch videos? Why do people watch movies, right? And I think there's a couple of different things. I think all the time, it's the novelty, right? I think like, maybe, when Star Wars came out, it was novel just for its visual effects, right? And just for that, they were, pushing a frontier, even if you didn't care about the story at all. And I think AI to some degree has been like that, right? People have been impressed with crazy videos. First Will Smith eating spaghetti, and now it's, politicians kissing. It's funny, it's surprising, I think people like this kind of novelty, right? But this novelty wears off, as you say, right? Obviously, it's not going to be there forever. It's already wearing off. And I think people are calling it AI slop, right? At this point, right? It's still getting so bad that people are just putting out a bunch of crap that makes it, even the more crap we have, the higher the competition is, because the more content there is competing for your time, the higher the premium and quality is. And that's why I don't really believe into creating a platform where you can just, plug it into your YouTube channel and it puts out 100 videos a day or whatever, right? Because this is never going to be competitive with everything else that's coming out. And what's really key here is then going back to what are these other, dimensions or, of why do people watch content? No, I think there are all these other reasons, like people resonate with a story, or it's an engaging piece of content, or they're getting information that they need to get, or there are some kind of value drivers for the audience of that content, not just novelty, right? And that content's harder to produce, and that's why you end up needing somebody operating this tool that is a true storyteller and a filmmaker. That's why we build all these tools I was showing you that you can change camera angles, because we don't believe AI is capable of coming up with that kind of quality. I mean, we don't have to believe, we can see it, right? AI is just not able to come up with this kind of quality content. But at the same time, there are so many YouTube channels out there that I know of that are creating completely AI content that is so engaging that, even on topics that I don't really care about, they pull me in. And I don't even care how it's made. Because when you look at, when you watch a movie, when you watch a TV show, people don't watch it because they know how it's made. People don't watch it because they know they used, After Effects. I mean, I think people wonder, they ask themselves, oh, wow, how's this made? This is, it's crazy. But then you don't say like, oh, I keep watching this show because they use the crazy Sony digital cameras. Then you don't give a fuck, right? You really care about the story. You get invested in the characters. You want to see the conflict resolution. And this is great storytelling. And, we have all these people who are really great storytellers, and we want them to use products like Catalyst because that's how we're going to create this content that's going to be great. I think that's the answer at the end of the day.
Yeah, true. I think, that's like where I think this storytelling or story generating is the main part where I think humans will just take it back from the AI, because I mean, maybe, you want to see some prompts from ChatGPT, initial text, but you really need to work on the story yourself just to make it more like human touching, or just like somehow, very original. I think that's where, yeah, kind of we might go back to human, being like taking part of that, not, just write a sentence and then you give it to AI everything, even the storytelling part.
Yeah.
So, like, moving on to the sales process, you mentioned about the creators, some other marketing agencies or brands. So, can you tell us, so what's your sales strategy and how do you approach to like YouTube creators or these big brands? Because I have seen big brands names on your deck. How do you even get to these big brands?
Yeah. So it's a couple of things. One is that we're just trying to do as much as possible in just this PLG sales strategy. That is getting us a lot of inbound attention. Even if, these big brands, they never convert to the self-serve funnel, but, we get their attention, right? They might try the product, they get a free trial, then they send us an email and they say, "Oh, I love the product. What's the enterprise plan like? How much would the quote us for SSO and, 15 seats?" So because we're, investing a lot in, putting out, we're doing, putting out a lot of content. We do lots of partnerships with, influencers, people, and, that got lots of our ICP in their audiences. So for, content creators, it's lots of YouTube content creators that talk about how to create a storyboard with AI, how to create, product review, how you can make a complete video with this tool, with Catalyst, right? So we sponsor these kinds of pieces of content. That's been a fantastic channel. That's why I believe so much in building a tool for creating this kind of content, because that kind of content is one of the best marketing channels for us. It's like we're literally like, I just every week when we talk to our product team, I tell them, look, we're gonna realize our mission when we're gonna be able to completely use our own product for our own marketing purposes, like 100%. Then it's gonna be, that's it. That's the product market fit, all right? So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And like, which platforms are working for you? So you mentioned YouTube, but are there some other like social media platforms that you're really focusing on them?
So, our number one, the main ones are YouTube. It's really doing great. We're doing lots of SEO as well. And then outside of that, we're testing lots of things, but have not been as successful these other two channels. We do also other types of social media, like, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. That's also pretty interesting channels. Also, email is great. I think email marketing is really good. But outside of those, I would say others, don't really stand out to me that much.
And with these big brands, like, have you tried to build a sales processes that, like you really onboard them as a B2B clients? And then, because I know that, it could work for creators like me or someone else that, they have this small content production, but for big brands, because they see a lot of tools, and then even for them trying out, something, you really need to have first the permission from your manager and then the legal thing and all security issues and so on. Like, have you tried to like really, approach this B2B sales in a more constructive way?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, before we built this automated process, it was actually just me selling. It was me doing everything. So, I was reaching out to people on LinkedIn and, getting introductions through my network. I'd set up first, do a discovery call, do a demo call, commercials, all these things, getting approvals, mapping out stakeholders, who's got the budget, who's got the technical requirements, and all this stuff. That's how I started out. And that was actually an input into how we then ended up putting this process together that's more automated. Even though, ICP was different. I never was really selling to content creators, YouTube. I was always selling to, agencies and brands. But the process ended up being very similar. And it ended up resonating with our ICP of more content creators. But on the enterprise side, we still do the same process. The thing is just that we're a small team. So I always tell my team, like, we need to have focus. Focus is the most important. And we're not in a position where we can do two strategies at the same time, like where we can do PLG and enterprise sales. We're just not at this stage. So we said, look, whatever comes our way, for me going to like networking events and pitching, there's leads to be there. People reaching out to me on LinkedIn. Every day somebody has me on LinkedIn. Some of them are prospective leads. And if something comes our way, we go and pitch it. I try to make the sale happen. But we don't really go and actively try to make these enterprise deals right now because we have such a booming, inbound engine And we know that we are already getting people to sign up for the product that are at corporates. They're getting a retail plan, but it's gonna be extremely easy to upsell them if they get retained on a retail plan. And these are the strategies that like all the great companies use. Like for example, HeyGen. Like literally, that's their strategy. They built their ARR to like, around $10 million before they start doing enterprise sales. And I believe that's the right strategy for us too. Because once we have all these people using the product, paying for a small license, then we can come in and say, hey guys, we got a great deal for you. And I know that, at these types of setup, usually the win rate for the enterprise sales team is 50%. Because the lead's already onboarded, they're using the product, you got the internal case study built, you skip like half of the sales process. You just skip basically to almost like commercials, right? And you close it. And that's how we're approaching it. That's why, we don't do much of, trying to generate leads, but, we have a process for doing enterprise sales when we have a good lead.
Yeah. Also, I think the best approach is PLG, which is like product-led growth. When you make the product very easy and the onboarding is so easy that client understands how to use the product, and then they actually see the value, and then they just go and subscribe it or just like buy the product. So that's amazing. And then in terms of geography, so where are your mostly clients coming from? Is it Europe, US, or where?
Most of our clients are in the US, and then the rest of, I'd say probably about half, and then the rest is just the rest of the world. So it's like Europe, but it's not just Europe. It's also places like Africa. We have people in the Middle East. We have a lot of very international customers, kind of the other half. But definitely there is like big representation of kind of Western European countries, UK, Germany. Off the top of my head, I think this one off the top of my head, but kind of that's a big representation. But then also, rest of the world super. And I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's a super big segment, also India for us. And I think India is an extremely interesting market. It's an enormous country. It's very rapidly growing. And I think these kinds of solutions that are making things, more affordable, like resonate with this market a lot. So it's not the marketing super interesting, but it's not as big as the US.
Yeah, like India is going to be the next China, as it seems. But also, I have so many Indian friends, and actually, most of the productions of the Western content, videos and all these things are actually made in India. So at least the production house are in India, where they edit or they kind of add more interesting things on the videos, and then they share it because it's very cheap to create content there, at least from the production house side.
Definitely.
Great, man. So let's talk about finance, money. How are you guys financing this project so far?
Well, it's mostly bootstrapped. We've had really great growth. Well, we did take some money. So last year we went into 500 Startups Accelerator. It's a fantastic startup accelerator. Shout out to the 500 team. We got a 100K check from them, was part of the accelerator deal. So that was helpful in funding the early efforts. But since we got really good growth and we applied all the learnings from the accelerator experts, we haven't even spent most of the money we got from them. It's because our revenue growth is so good, it's sustaining all of our spend. It's been fantastic that we have been able to our own customers supporting us, our own community supporting this development. So we haven't really been in a place where we would have to raise because even when we were burning, we would have like 24 months of runway. Haven't been fundraising, but we might this year to help us speed up with development. I said it's a competitive market, so being fast is key. But I think only if there's going to be a really strategic opportunity for us, not just looking for money. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, but we haven't really, started on a fundraiser or something like that I could, I don't have much of a strategy.
Is the MRR a public number or it's still a secret?
Well, I guess I can share it. We're at like 300K annualized ARR at this point. Yeah, we had good growth.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's really growth. I mean, that's enough to bootstrap this project,
But yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I know you guys are in Eastern Europe, but do you see, or the team moving to the US where the main market is there or somewhere else just to grow faster, and also in terms of funding options that you can raise background?
Yeah, definitely. My co-founder and I, we've been spending lots of time in the US lately, and I'll probably be back in the US this year as well because of one, it's just funding opportunities, but not just that. I think also it's just that there's also really great engineers in Silicon Valley, and there's also lots of competition in Silicon, or like people building in adjacent places. And it's really important to know these people. We've built so many partnerships. Like we have a partnership with Adobe for that Premiere export. I did it because I was in San Francisco. I met the person leading the ecosystems team at Adobe, and that's why we did it. And I would have never thought of that otherwise. And they supported us, they really put in a lot of effort to help us do this integration. And I think that's why it's really key. And the other one, it's, customers. A lot of our customers end up being in LA and in California because of, the huge entertainment industry, and being in close proximity to customers. Like, I've had the ability to go to, LA, Hollywood, and like talk to major studios, legendary, right? And, being here in Europe, there just aren't any major studios to pitch to. There are a couple, but, not like it's in Hollywood. So I think definitely, I see myself and probably my co-founder spending more time but at the same time, like we already have a global distributed team, all around the world. And I think in terms of building the product, I don't think, it matters that much where you are. So, we have people, it's just actually just 3 people in Slovenia. Everybody else is not even in Slovenia. Actually, it's Slovenian to be fair. Only one person is actually in Slovenia right now.
It's you.
No, it's not.
Where are you now, man?
I'm in Germany. I'm in Nuremberg right now. Yeah,
Oh,
it's our growth marketing person. He's in Slovenia.
yeah, okay. Great. So moving on to just for a bit is that we talked before recording that every day there is a new release, there's a new model, there's a new product coming in. And every day, there's this like hard drop because you just see something crazy going on. And this week we saw with DeepSeek, everyone was shocked the price of in the stock market. So someone that you're in this race, you're building AI video tool. So how do you feel, or how do you manage this consistent pressure of, something drop in and then like your heart beats get faster. And then you're like, oh my God, there's a new competitor, more crazy, more better. So how do you kind of live with this consistent pressure?
It's at first, especially like last year, we were like just coming out, it's like my first, real startup. I was very stressed out. I gotta be honest with you. There's like some really big companies coming out with products in our space, like with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding.
I think even Sora, like Sora was released last year from OpenAI.
In Sora, Sora was, and it was announced, last year, so it was, hanging around above our heads for like 9 months. And, I was worrying. I honestly, I worried a lot. I was stressed out. It's like, oh my God, like, are we going to run out of business when this drops? We know our customers, are then not locked in for life. They can cancel the subscription. And all of these fears, they never came true. And I realized that, I think there's this YC saying that, it's very counterintuitive, but I think it ends up being true. When you're in an early stage, the kind of ARR we're making, probably, even when you're making 10 million, and competition is not really that important. It's not really about competition stealing away your business. It's more important to just build a really great product people actually, care about, because it's going to be, I think, a year since we launched. And all these tools have come out. And like even before, when you just launched our like first basic product, didn't even have any video capabilities, like images only. And I said like probably 20 products like that have launched since, and none of them have been really a problem for us. Now that we're in video, we also had the same thing happen, and none of that's really been a problem. It hasn't been like as if people started churning more, or we couldn't acquire them. I don't think, it's that kind of a consideration. But then on the other hand, it definitely is important to keep up. It doesn't mean like we're just kind of like shutting off and just, building whatever we want. We're like extremely aware of our competition. We have a map of all our competitors, adjacent, indirect, direct. We know what they're doing. We know their strengths. We know our strengths. It's important for us to understand what are the strengths of our team? What's the differentiation of our product? What strategically we can do differently, to offer a product people will prefer. All these things we do, I think they help us, stay ahead or at least stay out of trouble. But then because we haven't really had a problem like that, that's kind of, I don't know, it's very unarticulate. I'm just thinking about it right now because I was never asked a question like this before. But I'd say it's stressful, but it's not really a problem, to be honest. Yeah.
2 questions. First, how do you manage your stress in those moments?
Well, it's, I just, just, basic stuff. I try to, do meditation. I try to, when I'm stressed out, take some time off. I try to, when I'm really stressed out, I feel like everything is going wrong. I think there's like this, I just need to go back to, the things that are going well. There's like the kind of music I like, that I'll go back to, to listening my, favorite tracks, or, playing them on guitar, just kind of like, doing this kind of things to like, put myself where I feel like I'm more in a more stable environment. But that doesn't happen that often. I think that's like just when it like really when the crisis happen. But I think, yeah, most of the time like meditation, going to sleep right time, and eating, and working out. That's what I do, and that's what helps me regulate stress. I don't know if you know of better technique, then I should learn.
I think just like, just taking at least one day off from everything, from work, because
Mm,
I know that when you're building a startup, you really try to deliver, and you're in this crazy ride that you don't kind of, you have this like dopamine of building, like hustling, and you just don't take any days off, or like an actual summer vacation or like winter vacation. So I think it's good to take some time off, and also like workout is also working for me, just like going to the gym, or actually my brother, he's starting kickboxing. So I think if you do something,
nice.
more, you can push your, kind of stress out with just like punching or whatever boxing, so
Mm,
that might help more as well. So just do something like outside, and just take some time off.
totally agree. Just wanted to add this, share this thought I just had. Something I was thinking over the holidays, because I took like 10 days off over the holidays to, this like the whole team, we actually took time off to recharge. I was looking at our financial results, because like our ARR is still growing even though we're not working on it, right? We put ourselves in a position where things were growing well. And I thought to myself, there's so many things I do every day. Or sometimes I work over 12 hours a day. I'm so exhausted. And I thought to myself, like, half of the things I do, they don't even matter. You know what I mean? And if I didn't do half of the things, I just have to work 6 hours a day. That's not even a full-time work day. Yeah, that's one of the realizations I have. I try to be very mindful about the things I do, because even though I'm super mindful, I still do so many things. They don't have any business value at all. They're just small little tasks, like, changing that little button of whatever in Notion that I thought is out of place, but it doesn't matter at all.
It does.
And I think that's another thing, it's, prioritizing things so that I have more free time so I can relax. And that's a big thing I'm trying to improve on.
Yeah. I think like there's so many things, that really doesn't matter. Sometimes I see, like founders, spending a lot of time on making things very perfect. I think something is okay if it's easy to understand, it's good, pitch deck or financials, whatever, you name it. So you shouldn't overdo things just like simply because you're an early stage startup and you have the energy, because it's really time consuming. And so that's something, yeah, kind of that works well.
Mhm.
Okay, great, man. So my question about AI still is that, is there any limitations that hold you up from delivering much more higher value or better value, and what that?
Definitely. AI is great, but it's got lots of limitations. I think there's so many people trying to, build in, higher end markets, like actual Hollywood production. It's just nobody's been able to do that, because they just can't get they can't get the quality, that these kinds of customers expect. And that's why, for us, that's why we're targeting markets like content creators at first, because we know that we can get the job done with the AI that we have today. But there's still, there's so many things, like models just completely refuse to generate certain images. And I'm not talking about like censoring sensitive content. I'm talking like about like top down shots. Like, it's so hard to generate a shot that's like straight down, like bird's eye view. It's just almost impossible. This limits creativity. And if you have a very specific thing you want to show, especially if you're like, like a high-end production, you just can't do it. And there's lots of these things that I think are, a problem. And the other thing is, like, when you get into these areas, sometimes you have to try a lot of times to get what you want. And that frustrates people a lot. And sometimes, if you get to that point where people start thinking, oh, if I didn't use AI, I might have been faster. That's when you lose them, right? And that still happens, especially for these more complex use cases and people that have very high expectations. I know these people churn because of that, and we just can't offer them a better product because we don't have the technology to do it. And nobody has, obviously. Maybe we're going to have it in a couple of years. I think we're going to have it in a couple of years, maybe sooner. But, these type of like technological, you saw that video I was showing you, like the person's walking backwards. Ridiculous. And you just have to go and regenerate it, right? It's fine. And it saves time. Even if you spend a little more time in some areas, but sometimes this motion is just too hard to control to get exactly what you need. And this kind of control and consistency is what I think if we had, it would have been much, much easier to build a product. And, we would have had better retention if we had that. But we just, nobody does right now.
Yeah, because yesterday I looked at this video space and I saw that Sora from the OpenAI is not available in Europe. So I see that there are some foundational models that are not available in some regions. So, I mean, are you like also not having access to Sora because of that you're based in Europe, or you guys are a US entity and it's not an issue for you?
Well, so as far as I know, Sora doesn't even have a developer API. So it doesn't matter. We can't use it. And we're already getting access to VO2 pretty soon. So that's better than Sora. So I'm not worried about that because there's so much competition in this space. Everybody's competing to have a better video model and a better image model. It's like there's these whole products that all they do is they aggregate all these different models and API into a single API for you to use. So if you just integrated one of those, you can just use the latest thing. I think there's not a lot of differentiation here in like, which video model you use. You just got to use the best one for your use case. And there's going to be something in the VO2 probably in 2 months, right? Maybe Chinese model or something, or maybe it's going to be American this time. Maybe European. We should just put out some good European models.
Yeah. Like Europe really needs to kind of catch up.
Step up, huh?
Yeah. Step up. Otherwise, because it's really crazy competition even now. I think that like Hugging Face is from Europe, so they're trying to do some stuff. So let's see if they can.
That's good. Also French too, so that's good. But yeah, I hope there's gonna be something that changes in Europe around startups, because it's very disheartening that China seems to be winning in terms of innovation, and there's US struggling to catch up, and Europe is just what's gonna be.
We're okay. We're just like watching.
We're just proud of our history.
Okay, so yeah, like reaching to my last part is that I'm asking random questions, and I would love to have your opinion on. I mean, as we are talking about foundational models and AI, so let's imagine that if you had unlimited money in terms of funding, so would you go for building your own foundational model for videos?
Interesting question. I mean, if the strategy that we have today would stay the same, I would say no. I don't really think. I mean, maybe. I mean, if I had infinite money, okay. Yeah, I mean, if I had infinite money, yeah, because I would put out a better model every day. Because I have infinite money, I have infinite resources, so I can have like all of China just working for me. It's very unrealistic, right? But I mean, then obviously there would be no way to compete with us because we'd always be putting out the best models. There would be, but then we wouldn't even be building the product we built today. You would just be offering our products using an API because everybody uses us. But I think that's a different strategy. That's not a really our strategy. And I think, if we had infinite money to put into creating these models and we would still be wanting to deliver on the same use case, no, we wouldn't, because there is enough competition pushing the boundaries on these models. If we put out a model like once a year, we would just be in the crowd of 10 other companies that are also putting out a model and they push the boundaries for a couple of months. I don't really see this, I feel like AI is just like, the internet was in, when people started building SaaS, would you build your own programming language, right? Why? I mean, well, Facebook did it, right? It makes sense, I guess, once you're like
Yeah.
I think company.
Yeah. I think like there's a lot to build in the application layer that you can really just like, use the models and then build something useful and then kind of deliver that value, because I think that's where, the actual value is coming from, is that if you can make applications which could be, have some business meanings or some actual, effectiveness in real life. My next question is that I just came up with this now. I didn't have planned to ask this, but I would love to have your opinion on what's the meaning of money in your life. Like, in life,
meaning of money.
How important is it, or kind of do you have, is it as a goal of what you're building as well or not?
Well, okay, that's very interesting. I have a lot of thoughts on money.
We can do a second episode, on this.
I have a lot of thoughts on money, but I haven't really articulated the answer to your question. I think, money's definitely important. I feel like I just like everybody else, I want to have a comfortable life. And I know in the way that money enables me to have my life fulfilled. have a comfortable home and be able to afford things that I want and, be able to buy things that excite me, like the newest iPad or whatever, right? Yeah, I care about money in that way. And then personally, right? And then business wise, I care about money because I know what I can do with money, right? I know that like right now we're bootstrapped and I know that only gets us so far, and with our ARR in the grand scale of things, it's not that much money. And I just can't hire a team of 50 engineers.
That's true.
And I know what that means. I know what the impact of that is on, making our plans come true. So that way, yeah, like in business, money is, it's resource to get things done. And of course, I'd love to have more, but no money is free, right? That's the point. If we take on an investment, we know that we are giving something away. So I think, the way I look at money is I feel like, in the economic system we have, the point of it is, use the population's time as efficiently as possible in furthering the country's goals. At least I hope that's what it does, right? And that's why nobody wants to give their money away. That's kind of the point of the system. And so, I don't see I used to save a lot of money when I was still working, right? I would put half of my paycheck away. I would put it into stocks. I'm glad I did because I needed that once I started my company. But right now, I don't save my money anymore. I don't see any reason in saving money. I see like if this company is going to take off and we're going to be successful, we're going to be living in abundance and there's no point in saving, right? And if it doesn't take off, I feel like now we've at least gotten the experience that we're going to try again. And now I don't save. Now I just spend all of my money because I feel like at this point, instead of, sacrificing my present time for future gains or whatever, right? I'm investing my money right now and I'm investing it all into myself, into experience, into learning, into, getting better. I don't make that much money as a founder right now anyway. So it's not like I'm making like hundreds of thousands of dollars that I don't have anywhere to put. I'm just making a normal salary. So that's kind of how I see it. Maybe I was making like a ton of money and I would know what to do with it. I would be looking at it differently. But right now I feel like I haven't really reached a point where I would say, I am, how in celebrities and like wealthy people say like, oh yeah, money is just, doesn't matter to me. I've reached this point of like, once you have, probably when you have like, I don't know, make more than $10 million, you just say like, oh yeah, well, I can buy everything I could reasonably buy. I'm not at that point. So
hopefully soon. So let's like fingers crossed for that. But no, actually, I agree that the base investment is of course in yourself, and you just reach this level that you have this abundance of money. And I think that like money, for me at least, it means that it's a good factor for moving or pushing the innovation forward. If you have money, then you can push or like you can actually bootstrap for your projects, and it gives you a bit of peace of mind to actually build something in a very good way, or just take your time.
Yeah. And something I want to add, I think is you got to have just the right amount of money, because I feel like if you got a lot of money, I think you can get complacent. You can be just like,
You'll go crazy.
hey, and you know what's crazy? There's this entrepreneur in Slovenia. He's really great at getting a rise out of people on LinkedIn. I'm not gonna give him more publicity, but he once said that a country needs the rich elite to innovate. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Whenever did the billionaires, when did we need the billionaires to innovate? I know when I innovated when I knew we're going to run out of money in 3 months. And if we're not going to successfully launch the product, we're going to be out of business. That was the times when we were doing it the most, when we were coming up with the craziest out of the box ideas, when we had the best focus, was when we didn't have enough. And I think most of the time you don't have enough when you're trying to build a business. I think every time the next funding round, you have to build more than you have resources to build with. And then you have the money, and then the goalposts shift again. I don't think it's the billionaires that are required for innovation. So I think that's why I think it's just the right amount, right? If you got too much, then well, you're chilling. You got 500 years of runway. Okay, well, we got time, right? But when you have zero money, it also sucks. Because I had to start my company that way. I had zero money to start, and I had to hire people to work for me for free. And you know how hard that is, But I couldn't do it by myself, so I had to get people to work for equity only. And I couldn't just choose. I couldn't pick the best people. I had to pick people that believed in me, that I felt like they could help us. And that's not a good situation to be in either. And we had to make so many compromises to get off the ground that I wish we had $100,000 back then. It would have made a huge world of difference. You're never in the perfect situation.
I think, yeah, it's really kind of, sometimes it depends on the amount of money, that you wouldn't go crazy if you have too much. because you really could go crazy. But I think that it still, drives the innovation. Again, with the right amount of money, we agree on that. So as my last question is that what is one thing about your life as a founder that people don't see or understand?
It's most things probably. Well, I had to pick one. Let me just think out loud. I think there's, all these things that we do. I think just the business strategy. I think, I know when I read comments online about people, Uber, whenever Uber made news, people would always say, oh, is that useless startup? They never made money in their entire career. They've been running it for 10 years. They still lose $100 million every quarter, right? What a useless company. And people don't get it. They got a different perspective, right? They got a different thinking around business, right? And startups do. And we live that reality, right? We raise money so we can, lose it, even though, to us, it's not losing money, right? We're doing this very intentionally. We know what we're doing, but it's very hard to, if people just looked at how we make our business decisions, right? We make hires and we knew we're going to lose money when we hired these people, short term, and how we invest into marketing, a lot of the times how we spend our team's time, you would say this is a waste of time. Like you're spending, like, your marketing person is going to spend a couple of days working on this, and all you're going to make is $20, right? Out of those 3 days, it's a waste. But it's not true, right? We are validating an experiment that if it's true, we know it's another puzzle piece into unlocking that, exponential $1 million growth that, well, once it's going to happen, everybody's going to think it's happened overnight. But it's actually, all these unconventional decisions we made to build the foundation for it. And I think, I think that's probably what most people don't understand, that they're not in startups. I would say that it's all about learning, and it's all about really finding out what are your, validating your assumptions that are core to your business model, that once they're all true, or, you can put everything together, then you have product market fit and you're growing like crazy. And until then, you can't act like you're a small business owner. Like, I can't act like I have a bakery where I have to make a profit. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that's this, experimentation mindset that I apply to everything, to hiring people, to making marketing bets, to building features, to even to investors, right? Even when we pitch, I take it as an experiment. I know I had this argument back when we were looking for the accelerator. My co-founder said, Raj, why are you using this strategy? Like, you might turn investors away. Because I told him, I don't want to tell investor what our numbers are. I want to play hard to get, right? And you're going to turn investors away. Like, no. Like, this is an experiment. Like, we're going to try this on a couple of people. Let's see if they actually, our hypothesis comes true. And if it doesn't, I'm going to change it, right? Easily fine. And, it ended up working well. It shouldn't be, you got to play the investor game right. It's just like one of those things. You got to play by the rules, and the rules are just not very obvious.
That's true. Actually, like, what you're saying is also aligns with what, like, Peter Thiel says, that each startup needs to have one secret that doesn't make sense for anyone else. And once the startup succeeds because of that little secret, then everyone knows about it because it was just like secret sauce. So I think, like, there are lots of things that doesn't make sense or don't make sense for public or other people, that why you're doing this. When you succeed, then of course it's obvious, and then people are like, wow, they were smart, and we didn't think.
You're right. And I feel like one of those things is like this differentiation question. I think all founders in this space, they always have to feel this differentiation question all the time in the moat, right? It's really hard. And it's just kind of like, it's a very hard question to answer. And I think people that look at this and say there's no moat in AI, they're not going to start a business in this place. And I think they're wrong. They're wrong because it's not about the traditional moats. And I think this is one of these, like, I guess you could say secrets, right? But I think people that are building that they believe in this space, they know this is a little bit different than previous, cycles. I think it's lots of these things. Looking in from the outside, you just can't see all of these truths that people will understand. Being there and building, I think you either know or you quit because you don't believe it. If I didn't believe in this, I would have quit years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, man, for doing this. It was quite fun. And yeah, thanks a lot for joining again.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I always love talking to you. It's such a pleasure to talk about all these things. So thank you for having me on. It was definitely a good time for me as well, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, man. Cheers.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.